This news center of the Sultanate of Oman television. Here we present to you tonight's news bulletin. But first, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq receives a written message from His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, Amir of Kuwait, related to the bilateral relations between the two countries, handed over to His Highness Sayyid Fahad. And by royal directives of His Majesty the Sultan, the Minister of Finance approves a new package of facilities and incentives for citizens and the private sector during 2021. And now live from this news center of the Sultanate of Oman television, here we present to you tonight's news bulletin. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq sends a cabal of greetings to Lieutenant General Abdul Fattah al-Burhan, head of Sudan's Transitional Military Council, on the occasion of his country's Independence Day. His Majesty the Sultan sends a similar cabal to His Excellency Miguel Diaz-Canel, President of the State and Council of Ministers of Cuba, on the occasion of his country's National Day. His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed, Deputy Prime Minister for the Council of Ministers, received His Excellency Dr. Ahmed Nasser Al Mohammed Al Sabah, Foreign Minister of Kuwait. During the meeting, he handed over a written message to His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq from His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al Ahmed Al Jaber Al Sabah, Amir of Kuwait, related to the bilateral relations between the two countries. During the meeting, they discussed good relations of cooperation between the two countries in different fields, as well as various issues related to supporting the march of the Gulf Cooperation Council and the developments on the regional arena, in addition to matters of joint concern. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Sayyid Hamoud bin Faisal Al Busaidi, Minister of the Interior, and the delegation accompanying His Excellency the Foreign Minister of Kuwait. By royal directives of His Majesty Sultan Haytham, the Ministry of Finance approved a new package of facilities and incentives for citizens and the private sector during 2021. First, housing loans provided by Oman Housing Bank. The annual allocations for loans in 2021 were raised from 60 to 100 million Omani Rials in order to reduce the waiting period for citizens and increase the approved loans from 1,350 to 2,250. Second, distribution of residential lands to citizens in order to meet the requests submitted by citizens to acquire residential lands. The Ministry of Housing and Urban Planning will work on distributing 23,000 residential plots in various governorates and wilayats of the Sultanate. Third, 1 year 2021 exemption for borrowers from paying interest to Oman Development Bank and the Authority of SMEs Development to support small and medium-sized private sector companies and institutions that borrowed from ODB and the Authority of SMEs Development Al-Rafd and Sanad loans. And reduce the financial burdens on those institutions and companies, especially with implementing government initiatives to redirect electricity and water subsidies. 32,115 institutions and companies will benefit from this exemption. Fourth, exemption from licensing fees for SMEs, exemptions from paying all licensing fees for small and medium enterprises owned by Omanis managing their own enterprises, holders of Riyada card for the first 3 years of establishing targeted activities specified by the authority. This includes manufacturing, industry, services activities, transport, tourism and logistics, and fisheries and agricultural activities. Fifth, reducing lease contracts fees from 5% to 3% in order to encourage the process of documenting lease contracts to protect the rights of lessors and tenants. Achieving the goals of Sultan Qaboos University Board is part of the strategic plan of the University 2016-2040 and complying with Oman Vision 2040 were topics discussed during the first meeting of the board for the academic year 2020-2021. Several academic programs were approved during the meeting, aiming at empowering graduates with knowledge and skills and best practical and research practices. The board also approved the list of graduate names for the spring and fall semesters 2020 and proposed holding the graduation ceremony for the 31st of the university students over 4 days. The meeting was chaired by Her Excellency Dr. Rahma bint Ibrahim Al-Mahrouqiya, Minister of Higher Education, Research and Innovation and Chairman of the University's Board, in the presence of His Highness Sayyid Dr. Fahad bin Al-Julanda Al-Saeed, Vice Chancellor of the University and Deputy Chairman of the Board. Specialists in immunization and vaccines pointed out that the efficiency of Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine for COVID-19 will be after 7 days of taking the second dose, and before that period, the person has the possibility to be infected. Meanwhile, the vaccination campaign is continuing for frontline healthcare workers, elderly with chronic diseases in the Wilaya of Quriyat. The number of persons who were vaccinated mounted to around 125 so far. The second dose will be taken after 21 days. In the meantime, the Minister of Health announced that the total number of COVID-19 cases registered in the Sultanate reached 128,867, while the total number of deaths reached 1,499. The total recovered cases reached 121,890. The ministry indicated that the total number of inpatients reached 84, of which 34 are in intensive care units around the Sultanate's healthcare institutions. And now all the way to London, with hours to go before Britain's economic and practical departure from the European Union tonight, Londoners described a sense of sadness and uncertainty. Some expressed worries about prices going up and travel being restricted and the impact of Brexit on top of the pandemic. The UK will economically and practically leave the 27-nation bloc at 11 p.m. London time, midnight in Brussels, 11 months after its former political departure. Although lockdown measures to curb the coronavirus have curtailed mass gatherings to celebrate for mourn, the moment Parliament's huge Big Ben bell is set to sound the hour as it prepares to ring in the new year. For some in Britain, including the Prime Minister, tonight is a moment of pride, a reclaiming of national sovereignty from a vast Brussels bureaucracy. Boris Johnson has touted the departure as a new beginning in the country's history. Zealanders were amongst the first in the world. New Zealanders are the first in the world to celebrate the arrival of much anticipated 2021 with the fireworks display that erupted from Auckland's 328 meters tall Sky Tower today. Revelers on the waterfront watched the 5-minute show with the brightly colored fireworks and laser lighting shooting into the sky over the city's harbor. Crowds were allowed to gather in the city to mark the occasion as the nation continued to record a low number of new coronavirus cases. And now back here in the Sultanate, all the way to Sharqiya Sand. A team of young female in their adventurous trip in Sharqiya Sand were collectively have put in force the women power, walking, hiking and learning new skills through 4 days of their journey. I was close to their active mission and managed to compile this report. Young women power, walking, hiking and learning new skills through a red desert in Sharqiya Sand dunes. A team of young female in their adventurous trip at these lovely sand dunes here in Sharqiya to undergo a set of activities right on the center of this beautiful golden sand. This well-organized youth trip by Outward Bound Oman, though it is tough by its nature, as physical strength is needed in many of the activities carried out here, this group is well set to carry out this intensive endurance strength and fitness training for 4 days. A real test is going on, as it can be seen here. Each member of the team is carrying a big bag on their back while walking and hiking for a number of kilometers across these sand dunes, where some areas such as this one, that indeed ascending it requires a good stamina.
Really, it was a challenge to live in a desert with limited resources in a tent without telephones for 4 days. And amazing things that in the first day we slept on the space with the sky full of stars. And really, I would like to thank Outward Bound Oman for this opportunity.
The team leader is carrying GPS system and radio call to communicate to the concerned person. And at this point, right now, communication on selecting the best route is going on. On this four-wheel Toyota Land Cruiser is a team coach leader cruising around this area, keeping an eye on the group from far and close by. She has all the necessary skills required to lead the group. These young, energetic female are seen determined in carrying out their planned tasks, having their discussions on various areas that are related to self-development and that of various projects which are in line with 2040 Oman vision.
When the students study and work is more better, and I agree with this point. Why? Because it's good for the students to improve the experience, to improve the skills, and it's easy in the future to get the job.
The group discussion right now is focusing on primary, secondary and higher education, including Oman's adventures tourism, ecotourism, arts and humanities and community engagement.
Okay, I will talk about it, and I will precisely going to talk about the education part. Thank God here in Oman we have an excellent education. We got a lot of schools, a lot of universities, but in the end, the person himself should manage his education. So we want to practice more, not just take our education from the university and just go to the workplace. That's it. No, we should add more of practice and training so we can develop ourselves, so we can choose a very perfect job.
Once again, after the discussions, the group is back on track, heading all the way to the Outward Bound Oman Center here in Sharqiya.
We just arrived from our hike, me and my group that I have coached for 3 days. They have walked for around 4 kilometers. We have crossed the dunes, so you know how difficult it is to cross the dunes with the sun, with the heat, with the backpack and everything. So we just reached here, the desert center, to take a rest and continue other things for the rest of the day. We have a lot of activities. We do discussions about work ethics, Vision 2040. We do other activities that will focus, maybe some activities will focus on teamwork, communication, leadership. We have a lot of skills that they will gain from different activities.
And after crossing about 7 kilometers, they are seen here back at the Outward Bound Oman Center to get some rest and nourishment for 2 hours and then continue their journey till around 6 p.m. This center, Outward Bound Oman, do prepare a lot of activities for youth, both female and male. Indeed, The youth do spend about 4 days here, and they carry out a lot of activities. After they complete these particular activities, they are ready to deal with the day-to-day life. Abdullah bin Ahmed al-Rubi'i, Sultanate of Oman Television, Al-Qabil, Sharqiyya Sand. Indeed, all the energy was displayed in that sand dunes, and I was able actually to accompany them for a bit of distance there. Oman Environment Services Holding Company BIA introduced during a meeting in North Al-Batina Governorate its waste management plan. The company highlighted also the project currently implemented, the challenges and the importance of community awareness to facilitate the company's work in the area and elevate the level of service. The meeting was attended by His Excellency Sheikh Saif bin Hamir al-Shehi, Governor of North Al-Batina. Oman Chamber of Commerce and Industry in Al-Wusta Governorate launched a comprehensive guide to government institutions and companies operating in the area. The guide contains an overview on tourism capabilities, projects and available investment opportunities in special economic zone at Duqm. The guide also offers information on tourism attractions and the available service and economic sites in Al-Wusta Governorate. The inauguration ceremony was conducted under the auspices of His Excellency Sheikh Ma'dad Muhammad Ali Ya'qubi, Governor of Al-Wusta. A number of measures designed and all set for the Sultanate's growth based on 2040 vision will take in the upcoming year 2021 and beyond. Here is a report. The Sultanate is well set for the upcoming year 2021. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq, in his recent cabinet meeting, gave his endorsement for the implementation of Oman Vision 2040, which represent a framework for national development beginning in 2021. It is important to note the framework is underpinned by the measures the Sultanate is putting in place to ensure appropriate physical balance. These measures are designed to rationalize public expenditure as a way of establishing the national economy on a new footing, in which the role of citizens in contributing to future development will be more central. It will involve a gradual step-by-step process of structural changes in which some long-standing features of the national economy, such as subsidies, will be phased out and new features such as personal taxation will be introduced. Pensions will be facilitated to make sure that everyone can be taken care of in their retirement at a cost which can be supported well. The Sultanate will establish a comprehensive structure for social security and designing personal taxation in a way that those who enjoy wealth and privilege are able to make their full contribution to the collective good. There is a steady and strong ongoing drive to improve efficiency and performance as well as accountability. All will need to utilize knowledge and expertise of citizens and their representatives in shaping policy for the future. As it is well known, the principle and the practice of shura upon which decision-making in Oman has always been based. With regards to COVID-19, the officials in the Ministry of Health trust that the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine will help protect the population and bring the virus under increasingly effective control, together with people sticking to preventive measures such as frequently washing of hands, physical distancing and wearing of masks. You're watching the Sultanate of Oman Television, and before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Haytham bin Tariq receives a written message from His Highness Sheikh Nawaf Al-Ahmed Al-Jaber Al-Sabah, Amir of Kuwait, related to the bilateral relations between the two countries, handed over to His Highness Sayyid Fahad bin Mahmoud Al Saeed. And by royal directives of His Majesty the Sultan, the Minister of Finance approves a new package of facilities and incentives for citizens and the private sector during 2021. And with that, we do conclude this news bulletin. Thank you for joining us, and good night.
عزيزي المواطن والمقيم، لقاح كوفيد-19 مصمم لتحفيز الجهاز المناعي للجسم لإنتاج الأجسام المضادة لفيروس كوفيد-19 ومحاربته على نحو مأمون. فإذا كنت من فئة كبار السن، فئة 65 سنة فما فوق، ممن يعانون من مرض السكري أو ممن يعانون من الفشل الكلوي والخاضعين